This is Stormwatch, and here's what's on our radar. Glenn, we're not doing that. I
I
had to
think
do
we
one for
are.
you.
You forgot to say that you welcome our storm chasers.
Welcome,
I don't
storm
know. I don't
chasers.
know. I'm going back to the normal one. We can take a vote later whether we're going to keep that intro. Anyway, welcome to Stormwatch by GreyNoise Intelligence, everyone. Each week we drop the latest info on what's happening at GreyNoise, take a look at a roundup of important and timely cybersecurity topics, and toss out some expert opinions along with the occasional conspiracy theory. Hat tip to Kimber. I am Bob Brutus, and with me today is Kimber. Kimber, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was a rager, per usual.
Nice.
Wow. Okay.
Massive Thanksgiving party house. Our signature drink was maple mule of sorts.
Ooh, those are good. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
With Maine maple syrup, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So your Thanksgivings typically have a signature drink that changes every year?
It's something that we've started doing with every large family gathering, and I think it's a wonderful development in our lives.
I like the idea. I've just not encountered that.
That's
It's
impressive.
important. It's it really adds to the competitive atmosphere of family game time.
Cool. Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Kimber's family is definitely
Could have
different than my
brawls
family.
actually with enough alcohol in you.
Yeah, there was a lot of yelling. It was great.
All right, so I did give you advance warning for this one because this is a hard thing to pick, and as the Yule log behind me shows, like I am in full like holiday season mode right now. So now that it's acceptable to start playing holiday music, yes, I do believe there is an official start to it. What are your go-to tunes for the season?
I'm gonna have to say a good rousing round of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Fair. Very
Solid. And then you gotta have the chill vibes with the chestnuts that are roasting on the open fire.
Which will
As-
probably cause wildfires in California. That's not good though.
As
Exactly.
demonstrated by the top left corner of this podcast,
Yeah.
of this video screen.
The classics.
There we go.
I'm taking dibs on the classics.
Dibs are yours. All right. And Emily, welcome back. I will ask you the same two cues. How was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was like deep contrast to Kimber's. It's just real chill, very small, very chill, very relaxed, laid back vibes. Was what we needed. So it was good. It was good.
Cool. And your fave holiday tunes?
So this is maybe a weird answer, but I feel like I'm at the stage in my life where I just really enjoy those like ambiance YouTube videos that are like, here's a rendered cabin in the woods with some like smooth jazz Christmas tunes or like holiday music. And I'm kind of into that. And like your background today on the video pod, like that's giving me those same kind of vibes. Like I'm
for the podcast folks, I do have this is from NPR actually. NPR like gifted this to the world a couple years ago. It's a 6 gigabyte like long burning video of just a Yule log going with no other watermarks, no sound, just all there.
beautiful.
So, yeah, that's great.
Kind of looks like your head's on fire, but
usually it is actually, yeah. That's part of the problem. So Glenn, I was gonna be all nice and actually do the normal roundup what I was just doing with the other show. But we learned just shortly before this taping this that apparently that apparently you don't have any fun doing this.
That's not true. I did not say that.
Wait, no, time out. I need Emily, you read the same thing I read.
I read your interpretation of what Glenn said. So
there you go.
It was hearsay, I think. But I also feel like there's no smoke without fire. So Glenn, what's the deal? Like, do you not enjoy this?
I just proposed ways to have more fun before the Christmas podcast or the episode before Christmas, basically. So I did say the word more, I think. Actually, I don't know that I did.
Well, I mean, and I'm sure you'll go back and edit it right now just to make sure it says.
I need to consult with my attorney right now, so I'm going to plead the fifth.
All right, we will move along quickly. So what is your fave holiday music?
Fave holiday music. This is going to be really random, but like if you've ever searched Spotify for Christmas trap music, it's pretty great.
Trap music?
Yeah, like it's pretty great. Other than that, I'm more team Emily for like the lo-fi chill vibes, but you know, if you have people over, the Christmas trap gets people going. It's great.
Okay. So since I actually have control of the horizontal and the vertical, I will basically say I put together the most epic holiday playlist for everybody. This is the
Ugh.
all I want for Christmas is use playlist, which is a bunch of folks that have sang the same song. Guaranteed,
Oh,
this is a great playlist to put on if you want people to leave your Christmas party.
yeah, this is the
Yes.
That is usually what I want. Like, I
Yeah.
just I want people to leave, so this is perfect. Thank you.
This is beautiful. This is art. Like,
Yeah.
I want to listen to this on repeat all Christmas season.
This is the GTFO playlist.
Yes, this is. So I do have a legit. I have two things I will share that I do. So one, that we play much. These are both to my spouse's chagrin. Merry Christmas from Chiron Beta Prime is probably one of my more increasingly all-time favorite Christmas music by Jonathan Colton. And also Bob and Doug McKenzie's 12 Days of Christmas are two things that get played on repeat a lot, much to my wife's and family's chagrin. No, wow, nothing. Glenn, nothing. You got nothing?
No idea.
Wow.
I guess.
You have
Did
you
you
not
listen to
heard?
these on tape?
Yes. The Bob and the Mackenzies was I probably still have the VHS of it somewhere. If you want me to be completely. Have you not heard the Chiron Beta Prime one though? Merry Christmas. You guys not heard that before? Oh, I will drop it in our Slack. It's a very fun. Jonathan Colton is a fun musician. It's a really fun one.
Do we have to pay to use music on this? Can we just like have a?
We probably would have to pay to use music on here, yeah, which is why I have.
I thought maybe it was old enough that it was like public domain by now.
Wow, the subtle shade there. I thought it was old enough that like
Yeah,
copyright
I know. I caught that. And our overall and so making all this possible is our amazing Overwatch. Ashley, what's your fave tunes? Okay, so not a huge holiday music fan. Maybe
Wham.
Last Christmas by Wham. You know, fair.
Yeah.
That's good too. That's fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. I almost wish we could afford the license to pay that because I think that'd be great to play that right now as like a background thing for a little bit. Anyway, so if you're joining us live, do not hesitate to heckle, provide your insights, or drop your fave holiday tune recommendations in the comment boxes on whatever platform you're engaging with us on. And I'm going to switch back to the slides too for a second, if I can figure out how to work my computer. I will look at this. I'm all over. There we go. As we have a podcast, as I think everyone probably knows by now, if you'd rather listen to us than watch us, it's highly recommended. You get all the show notes, you get all the PDF of the slides, you get everything. So it is a nice alternate way if actually engaging with us in a video fashion that does not work so well. And the one thing I will say here is I'm switching back over to my notes is I want to just welcome to the next edition of the Stormwatch podcast, Trinity Cyber. They are big partners of ours. We love them a lot. They work with us and we collaborate quite a bit. And you should tune in next week to get the lowdown on what they're actually doing. So we're going to jump right into today's topics. Oh, wait, the first topic is like it was last time. Tagsmas is coming. So beginning this Friday, we have a whole month full of just things related to GreyNoise tags and detections. You're going to learn a lot about our tags. You're going to learn about our favorite our favorite tags of the year. We're celebrating horrible things that have happened to other people, which is really hard to do. It's like I'm mixed, but they're our favorite tags from the year. And also, I just needed to give a shout out to design again because we have a tag event calendar. Yes, we are going to be able to go to a special section of our website, and every day there will be a new surprise. We only have 12 days of Tagsmas, so the actual things we're focusing on tags for. But we got lots of little surprises for the days when we're not actually doing a particular blog about one of our tags or a tag in review. So please stay tuned for that. Please jump in on Friday, and we will probably also talk about that and drop a note too about that in the newsletter coming out probably later this week too. So just hang tight for all that cool stuff.
Yeah, the best thing about our design team is that we can tell them an idea like hours before we need it. And they kind of just make it work without throwing things directly at our face. So
the best part about our design team is that we don't respect them enough to give them plenty of lead time.
That they love us enough to deal with our shenanigans.
I wonder if they would love you more if you gave them a little more lead time. I'm just
I'm sure they would. I'm sure they would.
And we do have a contribution. So the Every Day is Christmas album is
That's actually a
basically
really good album. I agree.
that is definitely a good album as well too. So definitely do that. If you join late and you just or you're catching up, you can always just drop more if you do have ideas too, or if you want to challenge anyone's picks. We have good news again. We actually have two pieces of good news today. Like we try to do. We try to start off the show with good news because we don't normally talk about good stuff the rest of the show because it's all about bad things. I'm a little mixed about this one, but I did need to put it in here. So there was a agreement that got announced yesterday between a bunch of countries. They inked a deal. Yes, inked, like just taped, Glenn. They inked a deal to make AI
Find it.
secure by design. So like 18 other countries, along with the United States and Britain, they had this agreement to put together. Basically, their whole framing for this is the rise of AI has raised concerns about the potential for harm, including disrupting democracy and causing job loss. Except if you just read through the whole thing and you kind of like figure it out, like the agreement does not address the appropriate uses of AI or how data is gathered or any fundamental things that are associated with it. So I
The
wanted
things that AI are based on are not included.
so thoughts about this one? Because like I have not like this is in the good news section, but I have not such good thoughts about this one. Anybody? Actually, you know, I'm gonna talk our resident AI expert, Emily. What would be what would be your thoughts on this one?
Oh no, don't call me that. So I actually have not read the agreement itself, and I haven't even read this article in full. But I will say I'm always a little skeptical of kind of policy in general. I understand policy is such an important part
That's a
of
funny statement.
well, I'm just skeptical because I think there's always such a gap between policy and actual practitioners
Mhm.
and what's actually happening on the ground. So like I love the idea of this in theory, but the fact that I mean, as it says here on the screen, you know, the agreement doesn't address the appropriate uses of AI or how the data is gathered. Like those are concerns that I would have like right off the bat. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, making sure that the systems themselves are robust and hardened is great, but like what are you putting into them? Like there's I mean, God, we could do a whole show about like the privacy and security implications of just the steps leading up to something going into a model or something like that. So I don't know. I'm skeptical, like cautiously optimistic. I don't know.
Okay, Kimber, any thoughts?
It's my mute button for a second there, but basically thoughts. I'm wondering if this is. I'm trying for this to not be conspiracy brain, but I feel like there's going to be some China fallout from this. Is just kind of where my brain goes with it. Because I've seen some articles floating around about AI usage and like apps and I went down the TikTok AI propaganda rabbit hole the other day.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of wondering if some of this policy is going to be tied into some of the like international relations type things. Specifically like because of like citing Europe and all of that. So I mean that's kind of where my brain is going is like what is secure by design and like what is misuse, and when I think about AI misuse I think about propaganda is where my brain goes.
That's cool.
That's fair.
Glenn?
Yeah, the agreement is, you know, non-binding, which is kind of the first thing for me that's like, okay, great. So it's a Slack message, it's a conversation, it's whatever. If it's non-binding, it's just it technically means nothing except there was a conversation about it and it's recorded. And it does focus on similar to what was already said, but it's about monitoring systems for abuse and vetting suppliers, but it's not focusing on, you know, what they're being trained on or you know, what kind of data collection is happening or whatever. So it's just, I love the fact that there's conversations about it.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously the last, you know, AI is not a year old, but for the mass public, AI is a year old. So this is pretty quick in terms of getting attention on an emerging technology. So yay, that's good. But as far as like changing anything, meaning anything, I don't think it's going to do anything just yet. But again, kind of like some of our ransomware conversations and stuff, like I'm happy that there's conversations about it. Question mark.
So my I guess bad take on this good news is
Didn't you
the
put this in
first
the good news section? It's
I
not
did, I
sounding
did,
like.
I did. Like, because it is good news that all these countries got together and at least on the surface said that, yeah, we agree to like not be horrible, and maybe try to make this thing not so bad, even though like it's already let loose or whatever. The first country on this list, like us, right, the United States, the like a week ago, if you were to go search for this, and like I didn't put it in here because like I didn't want to really depress everybody, but like the in all the major papers, the military is pushing for completely autonomous kill machines. Like they actually want to have AI, like drive the missiles themselves, drive the tanks themselves, drive whatever, and actually make kill decisions on their own in things. And I don't know how you can say we want to have keeping AI safe from misuse and sign an agreement when at least I consider that to be a complete misuse of the technology. So that's my take on that one.
That's a hot take, Bob.
That's a spicy take, even.
Call
But
it
that's
like
what we're here for. The
that is
spicy
what we're
take.
here for. Yeah, and if during the webcast there's a knock on my door and they take me away, then you know why. Some legit good news though. So I don't think there's any way that this could be. I mean, maybe Glenn could find a bad angle since he doesn't like to have fun on the podcast. But we we have great news coming out of Ukraine, which is not a thing usually these days.
Right.
In the midst of a terrible war that's going on right there with, and now also now like there's like horrible storm, like the actual real storm damage and displacement happening.
And winter
They,
coming.
and winter's also coming now. The government of Ukraine collaborated with law enforcement from like all around the globe, and they dismantled a huge ransomware operation in Ukraine. Like props to Glenn for showing me this morning. With all this going on, like they just took down like this massive gang. Like they actually caught the ringleader, which is not usually the case for a lot of these things. 20 investigators like working together across political lines. Just
7
an amazing,
countries.
yeah, just an amazing story. Like I don't know how you can not feel good about this story. Does anyone not feel good about this story?
I love it.
Yeah, we all love it. This is great.
Big fan of takedowns of ringleaders and
yeah, these folks
ransomware groups.
yeah, the more like I think this is the only way we're going to actually solve the ransomware problem is if we actually get a hold of these people and put them in prison, or perhaps do some other things as well too.
Yeah, I mean, like they did raids in obviously like in Ukraine. Like it's a big deal whenever multiple countries are willing to dispatch agents to essentially a war zone, or at least a country in war, for a cybercrime. So I think we'll hear more about this going forward. But yeah, I saw this morning. I don't know if it's from it's very recent.
Right.
So I'm really hoping that we'll hear more details about like what the impact of this organization was. I mean, I know it says hundreds of millions, but it's gonna.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like, and when I say massive gang, like 70 like launched attacks across 71 countries. Like encrypted 250 servers belonging to large corp. Like this is, and what I did find interesting is that they actually called this out. The initial access vectors were brute force attacks, SQL injections, and phishing emails. So like just goes back to the conversation we had last week, Emily. SQL injection is still a thing in 2023, causing massive problems everywhere. This is just terrible.
These are things that we talked about, like securing in the security onion, in 2001, right? Like
yeah, these are
it's
basic.
amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. But if it works,
right?
Yeah,
I think phishing will always work.
Yeah, has
to. I agree.
Yeah, unless you just don't check email.
That's and that is everyone that listens to this thing and knows me, that's a thing. Like that's how I stay safe, because I don't respond to any emails. Breaking news. So we do have breaking news, or is it? And you know what? I'm going to call this first story broken news. And I am not going to respect the company, and I'm going to call it ownCloud because that's what it is. I actually want to call it ownCloud, actually, just because how bad this particular thing is. So if you don't know it already, and you do use ownCloud, it's too late. You're screwed. You've been hacked, and you don't even know it, probably. So ownCloud is a popular file sharing service, has released 3 critical fixes for vulnerabilities that allowed hackers to steal admin credentials, modify and delete files, and redirect callbacks. Just those 3 things. That nothing big. Like the first flaw was the one that let you steal the thing. Like I know I won't. And the last flaw is subdomain validation bypass, which means like it actually relied on subdomain for access to things and it didn't actually do the validate. This is just terrible all around. And Emily, I am really hoping that you can tell us that there isn't a whole lot of these things out there.
Yeah. So I was looking at this earlier today, and from what I see, in terms of looking at things on like bare metal instances of this, there are about 2,200 of them that I'm seeing right now,
Okay.
which is kind of similar to like Move It numbers,
Oh, no.
interestingly.
Oh,
But
ouch.
but I do think, like, just in terms of hosts online running
Okay,
the
yeah,
service,
I
right?
get it. I know, yeah.
But I do suspect like the user base is different, right? Like this is it is open source, right? Like this tool, right? Isn't it? I think
Yeah, it's open source and it's targeted for folks that don't want to use, you
Yeah.
know, a Google Drive, a Dropbox,
Yeah, it's
whatever.
targeted to people who don't want to use insecure cloud hosting services. Yeah,
right. Well,
Yeah.
run your own. Yeah. And
because you're better off running your own insecure.
well, that's actually a theme I feel like that's come up a couple times in recent weeks about like running your own thing versus using the cloud version. It's come up with Confluence. Like
I was going to
it's
say,
always
maybe if
data
it's
center.
Confluence, the cloud is never affected.
Right. So yeah, it's an interesting, I don't know, kind of through line, I feel like, in a lot of the things that we've talked about.
That's more out there than I would expect, the 2,200.
I feel like it's another today I learned a product
Yeah.
situation, at least for me. I wasn't familiar with ownCloud until
Wasn't either.
24 hours, or actually till a week ago. And
5 years ago, I thought about using this, and I'm like, there's too much work. I can just SCP things if I need to. I don't need this.
I know a lot of people who messed around with it. It was pretty trendy at the hackerspace I'm a part of for a while there, and I think that people probably got bored with managing it because it's not really like set it and forget it, so to speak. Like
Clearly.
all this open source stuff, you know, they're always releasing updates to it. It's not like it just sits there. And
well, and the vuln was in a lot, you know, a dependency basically for the Graph API. And the first thing I want to call out, so I wrote a blog on this yesterday.
Let me put it up.
Yeah, to tout GreyNoise, like we had we were able to get a tag out yesterday and immediately see that this is, at least from our sensors, had been exploited for a few days before. So you know, it didn't I think this was released on like the 21st, so a week ago today I think is when it was publicly announced. But when I was doing some research for the blog, kind of putting on the rant against security comms, there are 3 advisories for the 3 vulns from the company itself. None of them list a CVE, which is ridiculously annoying. So like, even though I was on the page, I had to go figure out and match up the CVEs to write the blog to link them together. And I'm sure they did that on purpose. I mean, I guess conspiracy theory hat. They did it on purpose to have SEO not find them and all these things, whatever. But nonetheless, not a great move on the transparency side. And the fixes, you know, read them carefully because there is some manual efforts of deletion. The impact can expand outside, even if you're not using like the ownCloud service, but it's installed. It has that library installed that exposes some PHP info. So like, it's a little bit of a layered vuln, at least for that main one, the 10 of 10, which I think was 49103. So if you're affected by this, like, read it 3 times carefully, take notes. Even though they're short advisories, they're not very like straightforward. But yeah, I just kind of got a thorn in my side about not including the CVE on your own advisory.
The one thing I will say, I don't know, I guess I won't say a positive about ownCloud, but I will say positive as an indicator. Granted, it's a sample size of 1, so maybe I won't call it a trend. But I learned about this last week. So I consider us to be abnormal security people. So when I say normal human, that's what I say. I learned about this from a normal human who's like an ownCloud user. Like they and on of all places, Blue Sky. I mean, so like,
Wow.
you know, the place where nobody is, and I mean I'm there, so that means nobody's there too. And that was great to see someone like caring about it enough to, it was a decent like multi-thread, like multiple thread thing for just someone that uses it and wanted to make sure everyone else knew about it. And that's how I saw that and figured it out. So there is hope if if we aren't the only one. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, ownCloud. That's it. That I think there's this indicator that there may be hope that people are maybe at least the ones that are more tech aligned than not are getting it. Like at least out in the world, like enterprises might not be, but out in the world, people seem to be getting it, or at least maybe on the cusp of getting it. That's kind of a good sign. Maybe I should put this in the good news section. Maybe I don't know. Speaking of not speaking about like other breaking news that isn't so great, but props to Akamai for poking at this back in October and then releasing a little bit of detail now and then being responsible and not releasing tons of details before things could get cleaned up a little bit better. This is probably one of the nicer, cooler disclosure things that I've seen in a while from security researchers. They're basically the TLDR on this whole thing is there's a new InfectedSlurs botnet that uses a couple of ODAs that we don't know nothing about. We are trying to get details on it so we could get some like immediate protections into GreyNoise for folks that use it. Hopefully, like we'll have that this week and can blog about it and tell everybody about it. But there's 2 0-day vulnerabilities with RCE functionality, and basically Mariah's primary intent is DDoS at this point. So like the story basically talks about that. Akamai cares a lot more about DDoS than other things too. Like they're really good at picking up and fighting DDoS. They're going after network video recorders and routers with default admin credentials. And they basically install 2 older Mirai variants. Again, props to Akamai. They're working with all the proper certs everywhere. They're getting this under control. They're getting all the information out under to where it needs to before they actually release all the details, because this is apparently going to be pretty simple to deal with. And we think we've seen this in our GreyNoise data as we use our SIFT cool new like AI tool, speaking of positive AI tools, to kind of dig through new stuff that we see. But we can't confirm that till we actually see what we've got from these folks out there.
If you got the deets, let us know.
I'm just very curious to know if there are any other particular like specific things they're going after. Like obviously it's routers and devices with like default admin credentials, but I'm curious if there are specific flavors of devices, and maybe it's in the blog post and I missed it, but I'd be interested to know that if folks know, if anyone watching or listening knows.
I do want to also like give props for their posts, like starting with essentially a content warning, because it's I mean, it's called
InfectedSlurs for a reason.
InfectedSlurs for a reason. Like, and so I don't know. I don't think I've encountered that, which is interesting. But 2, like props for the content warning for what you're about to dive into is not pretty.
Agreed.
And shame on the attackers for using potty mouth. Like seriously, what is up with that? It's not cool. You don't need to do that. Just be professional about it. You don't need
be professional, bad people.
How long until we find out that they're like 12-year-old script kiddies?
Wow, because that is an actual possible real life thing. That hurt. That hurt a lot. Speaking of hurt a lot, we have yet another finding out about breaches thanks to SEC filings. And this latest one comes from Fidelity National Financial, and it's a catastrophe, as is noted in the TechCrunch article, because they experienced a significant cyber attack that caused widespread concern and disruption. The actual cyber attack did not cause the catastrophe. That's the interesting part about the incident response procedures caused the catastrophe, because the company blocked access to certain systems to try to contain the problem, which basically disrupted anything to do with real estate transactions for a gigantic segment of the poor population that uses those services. So like if you had a home sale last week,
no complaints about that choice.
Okay, well, but you have it's fine. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. But basically, if you're trying to close on a home last week,
I know,
or anything that like dealing with that kind of lookups for home value, you were screwed big time last week. And I just wanted to I had a second note here for the slide I'm showing up. We talked about this a little while back, but this is not the only time that there's been a disruption that has caused problems with like being able to perform real estate transactions. One of the major contributors to the MLS multiple listing services, real estate groups, also caused massive problems for that too. And we weren't really impacted by it, but we noticed it because we've been trying to find a little place to retire to. But like that was like we were inconvenienced by that.
Wait, you're retiring?
No, just
Are you announcing it today?
it's
I know.
called
I was
planning.
like, that was very like you just
It's
slid that in.
it's called planning for the future. And like, and I'm not really happy that Glenn wants to kill me and take my spot right now. This is not good. This isn't Game of Thrones. It's the Stormwatch podcast. Okay, it's not.
Winter is coming.
It could be. All right, so Glenn, you are not. So I think so. I will throw my hot take out first, so that you all can like shoot me down pretty badly if you want to. I think incident response should be measured, and I think it should be intelligent, and I think that was a react. And I don't know anything about the details behind it. Like I have no idea how they work their stuff internally. But my external 20,000-foot view on this one is probably a rookie team of people who had no idea what systems did what, who had no idea even how to do incident response, and he was like, shut it down, shut it all down, and they did not care a whit about what the downstream impacts were, and they probably didn't even know what that shutting down would even stop anything from actually happening. So I think it was irresponsible, and I think the team should have been better. I think all security teams should be better. So that's my horrible hot take on this one. Please fire at me.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So in an ideal world, like I agree with what you're saying. I think when I'm doing like awareness training, I often will use real estate transactions as an example because I know this is not everyone has gone through the horrible process of trying to buy a home, but the amount of data and information, and you have to show where every dollar came from in the last, X number of years, and like all of the things that you have to turn over and that is truly research to get a mortgage is insanity. And I've always had this like strong like bias, I guess, or whatever, that like if I was an attacker, I would absolutely go after real estate like transactions and companies all the time because they just have all the good stuff and it has all the data that you ever need to haunt someone forever. And so when it comes to like if they don't know, like ideally, yeah, they could be more surgical in their incident response, but I would rather not lose all of that information as a customer than and have a delayed closing, which I know is horribly disruptive because like when I last moved, I had it timed to the day, which was a bad idea. A side note, don't ever do that. Don't plan to close on two things on one day and move. Like things just don't work out that way. So anyway, um yeah, so like I get that it might feel like an overreaction, but I feel like it's better than, which I think we'll talk about here in a second, but like, some orgs have a breach and then they don't do anything about it for months, right? So you're kind of screwed either way. The breach is the problem, and your response is going to make it go one way, or your response is going to make it go the other way. Like look at MGM and Caesars. Like it's just a
Yeah.
philosophy.
I think I
thing.
agree here. Like if that's what your first instinct is to buy yourself some time, I don't think it's the worst thing. I mean, you have to think about the way that these things are measured is like how much money did it cost to fix it, right? So if you shut it down, cost the business some money because it's shut down, is that going to be less than if you had to restore all of the servers? Or like how fast is this cyber attack moving? Or like how are you going to take those devices offline that are affected and get business back up and running? So it's interesting incident response strategy. I don't necessarily think it's a bad one, but real estate
Definitely
is
the wire cutter meme of like just cutting the Cat5 cable.
yeah, just go in there, cut it. But in the real estate like MLS, multiple groups in a region, like I just imagine that definitely causes a lot of stress.
Yeah. Like when people are stressed at the max, is it moving? So
Yeah.
I bet there were a lot of Karens born.
Yeah. I like so I'm inclined to agree with both of you. Like I kind of feel like, incident response is really hard. And I would say like folks here probably need to maybe do a little more table topping in the future. Like maybe that would be helpful. But I mean, nothing happens in a vacuum and nothing is ever perfect. So like, yeah, I mean, it feels like this wasn't the worst this could have gone. I know, like, again, the process of buying a house, the process of like getting
Ugh.
ready to close, like it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's very stressful. But at the same time, I feel like they kind of maybe did the best they could with what they had at the time. Like, I don't know. Again, it feels like maybe a little bit more preparation for next time around
Yeah.
would be ideal, but I think this could have gone a lot more sideways than it did.
I mean, I guess we don't know where it landed, right? We don't know the details. We're on the outside
Yeah,
talking
there are no
about it.
details too. Like, so
So
if you were to go pull their listing, which you can, because I have the link up, and like it's in the show notes and everything.
yeah, it's
That,
blank, right?
literally, like I'm not going to read it, but there's one paragraph and that's it. It's just terrible.
But you know, like it's incident response is always hard to to I don't know, like in the time, like I'm thinking of a quarterback analogy that I can't think of right now, but like, you know, in the heat of the moment, like you have to just make a decision and go with it. And then it's always easier to be the Monday morning quarterback. But you know, like there could have been restraints
Glenn,
such as
Glenn, it's Tuesday.
what?
It's Tuesday.
What?
Tuesday morning. It's Tuesday, not Monday.
Oh, okay.
I know.
The saying is Monday
It
morning,
was
but
bad. It was bad. It
Yes.
was bad.
you threw me off there.
I think that was his plan.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah,
That was planned.
probably. Oh, I was gonna say they could have had constraints, like maybe the backup systems weren't working, or they were the first to be affected, and they knew they couldn't restore from backup. So, like, you know, there's all kinds of
I just
variables.
wonder. I guess what I'm like, you know, like little Susie with her teddy bear was expecting to be in a home on Monday last week, but right before Thanksgiving, they could have dinner in the new house,
Yeah.
and like
All those
they were left
incident
out in the cold.
responders were so excited about a little bit of time off, and then the pagers went off, and they haven't slept in days.
Ooh.
Well, no, actually, they did. They just cut the wire and went home, and we'll deal with it next week. That's what they
They
did,
didn't
right?
go
That's what they
home.
did, right?
I
No, there's no way.
All right,
I
I'm
love the table topping suggestion, mostly
I do too.
because
Yeah.
I find a lot of
Table
joy.
talk over turkey?
Well, no, tabletop like exercises.
Over turkey.
If you want to do it over turkey,
Yeah.
your food or beverage of choice, but yeah, I
Actually,
mean,
we
it
should
just
just
never
make that a
hurts.
holiday, like in the middle of spring. Everyone loves the big food, so we should have like a infosec table talk with turkey
Well,
holiday.
you should at least be running through your instant response playbooks like once a year. Make that
At
a
a
holiday.
minimum,
Okay, so
yes.
along this, I agree with that. Like I do that. I think the tabletop thing was a great thing to focus on. Do you? I'm still focused on Susie and the teddy bear because I'm sorry because
Bob
do
playing to the emotions here.
I am because do any infosec tabletop exercise people actually take the exercise down to that level? Like if we do X, this could happen to little Susie with the teddy bear.
When I was in incident response, I thought very deeply about the individuals at the end of oh my gosh, the teddy bear.
Yeah, the teddy bear is awesome.
Yeah, because you have to realize, like, while this isn't necessarily life and death in the sense of being a surgeon or like an ER doctor, you are still responsible for the safeguarding and keeping of employee and customer data. Like that is your charge. That's why there's so much burnout in this field, particularly in IR. I mean, it's people don't last long because
No.
it takes a toll. Especially if you really care and you're in it because sorry, now I'm like soapboxing a little bit, but if like you're in it because you care and you really want to help safeguard things, it's a lot because you do think about that. You think about the people at the end of the, whose data is on your systems, and you worry about what's going to happen to them if you mess up or aren't prepared enough.
Yeah.
Well, there's
a lot because you have the financial pressure of like the C-levels saying, here's how much it costs us if you mess up. And then you have the like emotional labor of thinking about all the people who are affected. Like, I don't think that being an incident responder happens in a vacuum because like you do have people hitting you up, you get that feedback.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah,
It's
so
a
just
rough field.
so I guess my final thing was like to add empathy to your incident response checklist if you're not already adding that in your tabletops because because a bunch of you just left the Susie out in the cold last week. Glenn and I talked about this a couple times, so I wanted to actually put the graph up for folks. This is so it's great that we learn about things through SEC. It'd be great if we had other ways of learning about things than having to have reporters sit and watch for SEC filings for breach notifications there. It'd be great if we could actually get that done at some point, in my lifetime. It's not going to happen, but these are, that's a great chart. So this chart that's up, and it's in the show notes again for everybody. We were at a peak of about 8,000 ish public companies, right before the year 2000, and that is just dropped. It's just dropped down. There was a report from CNN the other week. It's now below 3,700, and so all these regulations that you keep seeing, and the SEC just added a new enforcement thing, and all this garbage. Like it's going to be completely ineffectual because at some point there will not be public companies, or there will be so few of them that's like the rulings will apply to like literally like 12 companies at some point, or probably maybe 100, whatever. But the reality is like people are bailing from this because we have a pretty terrible open financial system now that makes it easy to hide money and do a bunch of other things. So I just wanted to throw this graph up for folks to see like that's where it's coming from. Don't rely on SEC filings to give you a lot more information over the coming decade, because I just see this plummeting more. And the regulations are great, thank you for trying, but the reality is like they apply to fewer organizations, so it's not gonna matter in the long run. This is why we do the good news up front, by the way, because like speaking of getting worse, we have so it looks like AutoZone got in the move it zone with a little hit there. If you don't know what move it is, actually, you know what? Emily asked to talk about move it today. Emily, would you like to talk about move it to folks, like just get a little recap of what this horrible thing is?
Yeah. Oh man, we could talk about this for so long. So MoveIt is a managed file transfer tool, similar to ownCloud, like we talked about earlier a little bit. There are a lot of
ownCloud.
Yeah, sorry, I just can't bring myself to say it. I feel bad. But so May 30th, Progress Software, who is the owner of MoveIt, published an advisory saying, hey, we found a critical vulnerability in this tool. If you have it, you need to patch immediately. And there were around, I want to say like just under 3,000 MoveIt instances online that we saw prior to that. And so within maybe a few days or a week of the disclosure, we started seeing organizations come out and say like, hey, we've been affected. Really large organizations, PwC, Ernst & Young, like the list goes on, US Department of Energy. And so these were all like first party breaches, right? Like the people who own the organizations who owned the instances were coming out and saying, hey, we figured out like, yep, we got hit. Here's the deal. And then sometime a little bit, there's like a long tail of that too, like over the next few weeks and couple months, like organizations disclosing they've been affected. Sometime, I want to say this came like on my radar around August, we started seeing organizations coming out and saying, hey, actually, we've been affected by MoveIt, but it's not because we run MoveIt. It's because we contract with a company who uses MoveIt. And so there was a government office in Colorado, and I cannot off the top of my head remember the name of it. The Colorado Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing, a little bit of a mouthful. And then we also saw the National Student Clearinghouse, which is an organization in the US that holds data research for many, many universities. And there were, I think, 890 colleges and universities who had data in their MoveIt instance, right? So then we were in this like supply chain era. And I kind of predicted that like through the end of the year, we'd continue to see these sort of like supply chain disclosures coming out, like folks saying, well, we didn't use MoveIt, but we found out one of our suppliers did. Now we're notifying our customers, which makes sense because, right, like the first party has to go through incident response, notify, do all of that. And then the affected organizations have to do the same kind of situation and notify their customers. So you expect that to take a little longer. But what I didn't fully, and I should have, but what I didn't fully expect was things like we're seeing now with AutoZone, who the Office of the Maine Attorney General has this wonderful site where you can go and look at data breach notifications. And several of the fields on there, they require you to list the date the breach occurred, the date it was discovered, and the date of consumer notification. And for AutoZone, which I have pulled up here, the breach obviously happened just prior to May 30th. Here it's listed as May 28th. The date it was discovered was November 3rd of this year. So that's like, what is that, 4 months later? like,
Like 3 to
that's
4, yeah.
yeah, 3 to 4 months later, right? And then notification to consumers was November 21st. Um, so and there's actually a couple of other organizations. WellTalk is another one that's had the same kind of pattern where several months later, they figured out that their MOVEit instance had been breached, and then about a month later, they notified their customers, which is a little bit surprising to me because there was such a big there was so much coverage of MOVEit early on. Like, it was a really, like, widely covered topic. I mean, it even crossed over, I think, into mainstream kind of news and media for a while because so many people were affected. Like, I was getting calls from, like, people who aren't in tech or anything, and they're going, "What is this MOVEit thing? Do you know anything about this?" And I was like, "Oof, let me tell you, let's talk. How much time do you have?" And so I don't know, like, I'm a little surprised and a little bit disappointed. Again, like, you never know what's going on in an organization, but I am a little bit disappointed that even with all of the coverage and frankly Progress Software kind of like doing the right thing and getting that notification out really quickly, that it took that many months for, like, AutoZone or WellTalk, or there's a few others, to disclose and like figure out this happened, just seems a little bit it's a little disheartening to me. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure what others think, but I'm a little bummed about that.
I mean, so I actually shop at AutoZone. It's a main thing.
Yes, same.
And I've seen the terminals they use for doing processing, at least the payments there. So these things haven't been touched in, like, a
You mean the
decade.
mainframes?
Yeah. And like, so I don't even know if AutoZone has like anybody in security leadership at all there. And even though things cross, so the one, and I do the same thing that you just did, Emily. Like, I will note when like a cyber thing crosses over into like mainstream media or mainline, whatever it's called these days. Like, it breaks free of our little bubble that we all think is so important, but no one actually cares about what we do, whatever. And but no one reads the news either. Like, that's the really, like, I don't mean to, like, wow, this is turning into like literally the worst, like, depressing section of all. Like, nobody reads news either. Like, everyone got out of the habit of doing that thanks to what's been going on for the past 7 years or whatever, 8 years. And so I don't know if anyone even monitors that. And like, I don't run MOVEit, so I don't know how great of internal comms they did to people that like run their software. I have no idea what the notifications look like there. So like, I'm not as surprised as you are that we're seeing slow response time. I'm actually kind of surprised they found it at all. Like, I'd like to know how they discovered it. Like, what actually caused them to go look, or what were the telltale signs that was there, or was it a knock on the door from the feds? Hey, by the way, you're breached because we know that for XYZ, whatever, for whatever reason. So I'm not surprised. I think this is more of the norm than we really want to believe, and I think that's kind of depressing.
Yeah, the timeline is the most disturbing part, right? I think we're now numb to MOVEit breaches, and I think everyone's been affected by this at some point. Like, even if we don't know it, like, it's just one of those,
Yeah.
like, it's too late. So at this point, I don't know if it matters. Like, I don't. I mean this. I say this in jest, but yet another MOVEit. Like, I already have 5 letters in the mail for
Yeah.
5 concurrent experience. Like, whatever. I don't like now. I don't even activate. Like, there's too many. But 3 months is, like, when we talk about policies and areas to improve regulations, and I know, like, we have, the EU has a lot for a certain amount of hours to disclose. We're working on some for a certain amount of hours. CISA is trying with proposals on the number of hours to disclose, but 3 months is absolutely insanity. And I guess on one side, great for them because it's not going to get really picked up very much because everyone's numb to it. On the flip side, those of us who care or that are in the field, like, really need to find ways to hold, put feet to the flame kind of thing, feet to the flame behind Bob, basically, because it's just highly unacceptable and it should not be, quote, allowed.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on. Before we do that, though, Emily, remind me after the show, if you aren't already hooked up with my mates back at the DBIR, I need to do that before, because they're doing some
Yep.
cool stuff. Okay, good, cool.
Yep.
Oh yeah, this is okay. More bad news. I guess the break. I'm gonna change it from breaking news to just horrible news from now on. I'm gonna change the banner and everything. The Register. I don't normally link to the Register articles because like I just normally don't. But because they interviewed Katie, who used to run Microsoft's bug bounty program, actually was the creator of Microsoft's bug bounty program. I felt like they did a decent job doing the interview, so I wanted to make sure that we got that in there. But Microsoft's bug bounty program turned 10. We don't have time to talk about bug bounties in general and all of my feels about bug bounties. I wanted to just share Katie's feels on that one. Which is that while bug bounty programs are important, they should not replace secure software development at Microsoft, because I think it has for most organizations, including them, and that it should be part of a concrete feedback loop. So integrate those findings into there, maybe branch out and like look for things surrounding it. Do your job as a software development company that puts stuff in people's organizations that then gets breached and causes lots of problems. And despite the success of such programs, Katie says it does not believe they have made software more secure. So, really quick take, because my whole thing of trying to get this under an hour is not working again. Um, so just real quick take, thumbs up, thumbs down. We can have a whole episode maybe on just doing this. What's your opinion on bug bounty programs? Do you agree with Katie that they have not made programs overall more secure? And I'm talking about Microsoft and specifically just in general, or have they actually helped contribute to making the software more secure? I will start with Glenn. Brief.
I would say it's 60-40. No, it's 55-45 more secure.
Okay, Kimber.
I'm gonna say that I agree, because if they were successful, we would be seeing we'd be seeing less of these kind of repeating things, I guess, is
But
my thought.
my counter to that, I know.
No.
I know.
No, next time we'll do we'll do a longer segment next time. And
I'm gonna put it in the comments.
Go ahead.
Put it in the comments, Glenn. Do you want to steal my time? Go. What's your opinion?
That we don't. It's like every other security control. We don't know because we don't know what was avoided by bug bounties and responsible disclosure.
Yep. So that's where I was going. Like, I don't know because I don't know what the alternative is. I don't know what the control is. Like
we could just
maybe things would
sell
be 10
those
times
ODAs
worse.
to
I don't
foreign
know.
governments that would use it for even worse things. I don't know. So like it's like a phishing control. Like I don't know. It blocked a bunch of things. Like maybe some were bad. Cool.
Well, all I can say is it's made a bunch of people like wealthier than they were before, but it hasn't actually made Microsoft stuff more secure at all. Anyway, and then I guess this is not this isn't depressing, although like I kind of wish they'd leave the cows alone as I stare at the cows. Like I'm literally looking at the cows across the field from me right now. The Internet of Insecure Cows. Glenn, you want to talk about this one since you're the one that found this one?
I mean, it was more in here just because it's awesome that there was a talk and an academic paper and this research around the security of wireless devices that are used for health monitoring of cows. And so they were able to basically reverse engineer the protocol and do some false data injection for one of the sensors. So it's just kind of cool in a nerdy way. Like, I mean, the cows weren't zapped or anything as far as I know, so that's great. But like it's really cool if you go down these like research lanes of how much of the IoT technology is really targeted for agriculture and farming. Like it is insane. Like the need for remote internet is so high because of these pastures of things and monitor, like whatever. So like it's a whole world out there that most of us don't even know. But it was just kind of cool to see like this whole massive professional research talk and paper on monitoring cows.
So this is also the one thing I did like about it is they did emphasize how like these weaknesses in the software supply chain can now potentially have severe negative impact on the food supply chain. So that's just like something to be aware of as we all try to do awareness, because we should all be ambassadors of security awareness wherever we go. And like whenever we're talking to folks that are dabbling in this IoT stuff or OT stuff, it's really important they understand that whole downstream impact of not being secure by design in this kind of sense, because this literally could cause them to not have the right production of things and not get like actual critical whatever they're doing with the cows, whether it's pasture or other stuff, to be able to go do that.
Or to send false data that a cow's healthy when they're not, and then
right.
it enters the food chain or stream, whatever.
I'm going to kick it to the next one. We have tool time. This is a quick mention. I've been following, this is a cool little Rust program. So if you go to haveibeen.squatted.com, which is terrible name, F100 terrible. I think it's just a terrible name, but it's what it's called, typo squatting. It's a cool service. It's all Rust based too, and it's open source. So if you sign in and go, like, you'll eventually get to the thing. I've been following the development of this thing for about a week. Really cool thing. It's really super fast. What they do basically is they take your domain name in. So I put ours in. I stopped it after 32. Well, I screen captured it after 3,200 permutations. I went all the way through. But they basically do all of the potential, like, homoglyphs and all the things that are related to typo squatting, so you have awareness of what's happening with your domain, which is kind of your brand. It's kind of like your logo now if you're a corporation. The service is free for now. I don't know if it's going to be freemium or whatever moving forward. And you do have to log in to get all the results, but I don't see a problem with that. And you'll be able to use the code on your own at some point too if you want to, so you don't have to rely on this thing. But this is just, this is pretty cool. I just want to ask folks here, have you ever have any of the orgs that you've worked for been a victim of typo squatting, and that's actually caused a problem for that organization? Like, I know when I worked at Verizon, basically we had this thing, like, it was second, like the DBR team didn't do this, but we knew all the other teams that did this. They had their brand protection for domains, like they had stuff searching for this stuff all the time to be able to do that, and they get hit regularly with this. Did you, any of your organizations, ever fall victim
Yes.
to typo squatting?
Yep.
Wow.
Yes.
Really? Wow.
It's if you work for one of the top, like, Fortune 50, it's pretty much constant. It's constant typo squatting, and it's used for phishing campaigns, and they'll just roll it. So you get, like, I don't know, whatever the smallest interval of spinning up this typo squat. And the Puni code, if you don't know about Puni code domains, get on those. But it's an annoyance. If you don't have typo squatting monitoring, yeah, it's big for phishing.
There's I'm not familiar with this tool, so I'm not taking away from it at all. But it feels similar to a free tool called DNS Twist that I'm a big fan of.
I was just thinking about that.
And I've back in previous roles with customer facing roles, and I would recommend it here as well. Like, DNS Twist is an easy tool. It's free. Download it, and it sounds similar. So again, I'm not saying one or the other.
Yeah,
now this is web-based.
In the Reddit thread, the Reddit thread, people were like they were giving props out to DNS Twist, and I'm not trying to take away from that either. This is just a neat, new, cool Rust.
Yeah, no, and this is probably easier for like, if you have someone in marketing, like, no offense, Overwatch, someone in marketing or someone that's less technical, because the other one is command line, whatever. So I put my foot in my mouth. So
I need to make Glenn aware that our Overwatch has the ability to mute and also just like kick you out if it's just remember, and other things, like she has god powers. So let's
but if with these tools, like, the best thing is to try to buy them, right? If you can afford them or have the money to, just so that you own them and they can't get bought. If you can't afford to do that, sinkhole them within your internal infrastructure. That way, at least if someone phishes your org, your people, and they click on it, it gets, it goes to nowhere, it goes to a block page or something. So just some tips there.
Very cool. So we have some shameless self-promotion. Emily, you all, one of your folks, Aiden, had a great blog last week. I wanted to make sure we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. I know we're running a little bit long today, so I won't chat too long about this. But yeah, so he did an investigation into Vidar Stealer. It's evolved out of a different Stealer, Archive Stealer. But I think kind of so he does like a whole breakdown of like kind of how it works, what it does, what makes it unique. But I think kind of the interesting piece here, or what sort of like makes it makes it interesting, in addition to like kind of what it does and sort of like what it's capable of stealing, is that it's been associated with Scattered Spider. So anytime there's malware stealers that are associated with these big groups, like, they're always kind of interesting to look into. So I would say check out the post, because he steps through in really nice detail kind of like how this works, how he did the investigation, and then also like provides a list of some of the C2s, like some IOCs at the bottom of the post. So you can go check those out.
Yeah, it was great Thanksgiving reading. It was like I needed something to read. This was great. I give props on the master down out there. We've got some news as well too. I guess Glenn would call this marketing shill news. Glenn, I guess you would call that. Sorry, Glenn. I mean, you're the one that's making it. We have a really great integration with Microsoft Sentinel. That just became a pretty cool thing. We have a link to the blog post up about it right now. It's a great. Nick did a great job on the blog post. Please, if you use Sentinel, definitely do this because it will help give you timely protections when things like hopefully no one that uses Microsoft Sentinel uses ownCloud, so maybe I won't use that as an example, but whenever there's a bad thing coming out, this would be a great thing to tie in together out there. We has tags. We are talking about the ownCloud one. Glad I believe we need to figure out a way to we could do this with metadata, but we need to figure it out. I think these are all except for ownCloud, they're all SIFT tags. Like they all came up from our SIFT backlog of unusual.
Highly likely.
Yeah.
It's all become such. SIFT is literally a fire hose at this point, so
yeah,
I can't even keep
for
up.
folks that don't know SIFT, we will show the SIFT UX update probably next week, the week after. I keep just downplaying. I keep having to shunt it away because we don't have time to cover it.
Well, next week we have multiple guests.
I know. Yeah, we have Trinity Cyber on, so we probably won't cover it next week. We need to talk about Kev a little bit. Did anyone do the check?
Are you talking about their downgrade that they did for us, or that they did for us being the global we?
Well, no, I'm talking about I'm talking about has Kev released anything today to
Oh,
us over?
Let's see.
Someone didn't check because it's been 7 days, if not.
I don't think so.
Yay! I like this number being accurate.
Unless they downgraded their API too.
Maybe.
I'm picking on them today because
yeah, well, you should. So the last thing they had was 7 days ago. Thankfully, there was. It's just incredible how there was no massive vulnerabilities over a holiday weekend in the U.S. I can't believe that. The GNU library buffer overflow vulnerability that's embedded everywhere. There's actually been I don't have the post for it up here, but there's a great post on how this actually got exploited in the wild through PHP stuff. It was a really cool post. I also wanted to give shout out as part of all the ransomware stuff I've been reading over the past 2 weeks. Learned about the CISA's ransomware checklist. So this, if you get hit with this is a great check. So make sure you have a copy of this offline somewhere in your organization, because if you have ransomware, you might not be able to get to it otherwise. Especially if you cut the cord like some companies do, and put teddy bears and little girls out of home. This is a great checklist to have around. It's a good checklist in general for response, but it is especially good for ransomware. So please do that. I do need to do one little smackdown on Kev, which is if anyone's gone to CIS's Kev site, the known exploited vulnerabilities catalog site in the past weekish or so, they have now emphasized pretty and made that Kev catalog pretty useless.
Pour one out for the table.
Yeah. So if folks do miss the very nice searchable, scrollable, interactable table and want to see something in a more compact view or be able to expand the view, I have replicated the exact functionality you had before because they were using the data tables JavaScript library. And the link's up there for it. I won't say it out loud, but it's up there if you want to see it. Hopefully we won't need this soon. Hopefully CISA will do the right thing and restore the functionality coming back to there. I'm going to bring it back to just me and talk to you folks for a second. So we're closing out. We have a Discord too. I didn't put the script, but we have Discord, run all the things you get off the show thing. Since today is Giving Tuesday, I wanted to have everyone have the opportunity to just give a shout out to whatever charities that they want to have people support. So I will start with Emily.
Yeah. So one of my the things that I always try to give to are local food banks and pantries, all year really, just because I think those are really important for communities. But also I would encourage you to look for community fridges in your area.
Yeah.
So just type in community fridge and your city or town, because I feel like those are really direct, there's no overhead, there's no middle person, there's nothing but you taking food or supplies to these pantries and fridges, and people who need them, being able to come and shop essentially. So yeah, plug for community fridges.
And the price of food has not gone down, so that has not helped.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it feels like everything's kind of getting harder and worse every year. So yeah, if you have the time, if you have the chance, do this.
That's a great suggestion. Kimber?
One of the things that I guess queer youth. There's a bunch of different local nonprofits. a lot of these kids, struggle with the holidays because it's a lot of family time and that can be rough, the acceptance, etc. So there are a lot of local support groups that I think you look into and figure out, the ones that are 501c3, and they're usually very good resources. Barring that, Translifeline, who has a phone number for support during the holiday seasons. Holidays can be rough for people,
That is
so
awesome.
anything like that, that's a good support.
Glenn?
Yeah. My first thought is around, well, not my first thought, I shouldn't say that, but around the animals. So SPCA, I don't know if that's a national thing or if that's more local.
Yeah.
But okay. But that's where my late dog was from the SPCA, like adopt, don't shop, like big fan of that. So they obviously rescue and take care of a lot of animals that would not have had that chance. So that's always one of my priorities. And then also thinking about folks that are in situations that require assistance to escape from, so domestic situations. So those are my two top thoughts whenever I have money to donate or time.
That's awesome. I'll drop SaveTheChildren.org. They do lots of work in war-torn countries, but they're doing a massive amount of work right now in Ukraine. They've actually helped out my extended family there, so I'm really appreciative of
That's
them.
wonderful.
So if you can spare some coin for them, I think that'd be awesome. So
Wow.
everybody, thank you.
What
for
a downer. Let's end on the.
Wow. Oh, helping children
No,
is a
it's
downer. Wow.
positive. No, these
yeah,
are
Oh,
these are
okay.
ways
the
that folks
podcast
can
isn't
give.
fun. Yeah, so the podcast isn't fun and saving children's a downer. Wow, that's great. This is great, Glenn. Thanks. This is great.
The fact that they need anyway. Okay, I will just stop talking.
Anyway, so thank you all for taking time today, recovering from your tryptophan dreams of last week. Ashley, thanks for doing a great job with the Overwatch, and we will try to keep it to less than an hour next week, I promise. And thanks for everyone for tuning into and listening to Stormwatch. Catch you next week.
Bye.